The message from Jasper, the tall, muscular single dad whose son Noah was best friends with my Liam at school, appeared on my phone as I waited in the car line. "Hey Antonio, how about dinner at my place tonight? The boys can play, and we can finally chat like the single dads we are." I replied yes without thinking twice, but as I pulled into his driveway that evening in our quiet Seattle suburb, a strange flutter in my chest told me this night might be the start of something I wasn't ready to name. Jasper's house sat on a tree-lined street where kids rode bikes until dusk and porch lights flickered on one by one. I parked behind his black pickup, the one I'd seen him driving to every soccer game, and took a deep breath. Liam bounced in the passenger seat, already unbuckling. "Dad, Noah said they have the new Mario game. Can we stay late?" I ruffled his hair and forced a smile. "We'll see, buddy." Inside, the scent of garlic and tomato sauce wrapped around me like a hug. Jasper opened the door wearing a simple gray Henley that stretched across his broad shoulders, his beard neatly trimmed, eyes warm under the porch light. "Antonio, glad you made it. Noah's been counting down the minutes." His voice was deep, steady, the kind that made you feel grounded even when everything else felt shaky. The boys disappeared downstairs in a blur of laughter and footsteps. Jasper handed me a glass of red wine and led me to the kitchen island where a homemade lasagna bubbled in the oven. We talked about the usual dad stuff at first: Liam's math struggles, Noah's love for dinosaurs, the endless laundry that came with raising 10-year-old boys alone. But somewhere between the salad and the second glass of wine, the conversation shifted. Jasper leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and said quietly, "It's not easy, is it? Being the only one showing up to parent-teacher nights and still trying to figure out who you are after everything falls apart." I froze for a second. My divorce from Sarah had been 2 years ago, civil on paper but brutal in the quiet nights that followed. She had sensed my distance long before I admitted the truth to myself, and when I finally said the words out loud, she packed her bags with a sad smile and left me full custody of Liam. I had buried the rest, the questions, the fear of what it meant to be a gay dad in a world that still watched too closely. Jasper didn't push, but his honesty opened a door. He told me about losing his partner 5 years earlier in a highway accident, how Noah had been only 5 and how he had to learn to be both parents at once while grieving in secret. "People see the construction guy with the big truck and think I've got it all together," he said with a small laugh. "But some nights I still wonder if I'm doing enough." I found myself sharing more than I planned. How coming out had felt like both freedom and exile, how I worried Liam would feel different at school if anyone knew. Jasper listened without judgment, nodding in that steady way of his, and for the first time in years I felt seen, not as the careful single dad who kept his walls high, but as a man still figuring out his own heart. By the time we cleared the plates and the boys begged for one more round of Mario Kart, the air between us felt charged with something new. Jasper walked me to the door later, Liam half asleep against my shoulder. "Let's do this again soon," he said, his hand resting lightly on my arm for a second longer than necessary. I drove home through the misty Seattle streets, streetlights reflecting on wet pavement, and replayed every word. That night, lying in bed with the house quiet except for the distant hum of traffic, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself the question I'd avoided for months. Why did Jasper's smile stay with me long after the porch light faded? The next morning Liam woke me asking when we could go back. I smiled, but inside the flutter had become a steady beat I couldn't ignore anymore. The weekend after that first dinner, Liam and I found ourselves at the park again, this time with Jasper and Noah joining us for an impromptu soccer game. The grass was still damp from morning rain, but the sun broke through just as we arrived, turning everything golden. Jasper tossed me a ball with an easy grin. "Ready to get schooled, Antonio?" His laugh echoed across the field as Noah and Liam raced ahead, their sneakers kicking up mud. I hadn't played in years, but something about Jasper's energy pulled me in. We ran drills with the boys, cheering when Liam scored a lucky goal, and between plays Jasper and I fell into easy conversation again, about his latest construction project downtown, my latest design deadline for a local brewery logo, the way Seattle winters made everything feel a little heavier. By the third weekend, we had a rhythm. Barbecues at Jasper's on Fridays, park mornings on Saturdays, quiet talks on his back deck after the boys crashed on the couch. One evening, after Noah and Liam had built a massive Lego fort and declared it their fortress, Jasper opened a second beer and asked the question that changed the temperature between us. "You ever think about dating again?" I nearly choked on my drink. The truth sat heavy on my tongue. I hadn't dated since Sarah. Hadn't even let myself look twice at another man because the fear of messing up Liam's world felt too big. Jasper waited, patient as always, his eyes steady under the string lights. "I tried once," I admitted finally. "A coffee date last year. It felt wrong, like I was hiding half of myself." He nodded slowly. "I get that. After my partner died, I swore off it too. But watching you with Liam, you're a good man, Antonio. The kind who makes someone want to try again." That night I drove home replaying his words, the way his voice had softened on that last sentence. Back in my quiet house, I stood at the kitchen window staring at the dark yard and let myself feel it. The pull, the warmth, the terrifying possibility that I was falling for the single dad who coached my son's team. Monday at school pickup, parents waved and chatted in the usual clusters. I caught a few glances when Jasper pulled up in his truck and walked over to high-five Liam. Nothing overt, but I felt the weight of eyes on us. Later that week, during a rain-soaked afternoon at my place, Jasper helped me fix a leaky faucet while the boys built blanket forts. Our hands brushed when he passed me the wrench, and the spark was undeniable. He didn't pull away. Instead, he looked at me and said softly, "This feels right, doesn't it?" I didn't answer out loud, but my heart did. The days blurred into a comfortable pattern of shared meals, inside jokes, and late-night texts about nothing and everything. Liam started calling Noah my brother from another mother, and the sound of it made my chest tight in the best way. Yet every time I caught myself staring at Jasper's profile while he grilled burgers or helped Noah with homework, the old fears crept back. Whispers at school events, questions from my own family back in California, the worry that one wrong step could upend the fragile peace I'd built for Liam. Jasper seemed to sense it. One night on his deck, after the boys were asleep, he turned to me and said, "You don't have to figure it all out tonight, Antonio. Just know I'm not going anywhere." His words settled over me like a blanket, and for the first time I let myself believe maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to face the world alone anymore. The friendship had deepened into something richer, something that made the future look brighter even as the questions multiplied. School picture day brought the first real test. Liam came home with his usual grin and a crumpled form asking for family photos. But the note from his teacher mentioned a new family tree project that suddenly felt loaded. That evening Jasper called, voice calm but serious. "Noah's asking questions about why we're always together." I told him we're good friends, but maybe it's time we talk to them together. We decided on a Saturday hike at Discovery Park, the kind of day where the Pacific Northwest air smelled of pine and salt water. The boys raced ahead on the trail, collecting pine cones, while Jasper and I walked side by side, shoulders occasionally brushing. Halfway up the hill he stopped, looked out over the sound and said, "I've been thinking about us a lot, more than friends, Antonio, a lot more." My pulse hammered. The words I'd been holding back tumbled out. How his presence made the empty spaces in my life feel full. How scared I was that admitting it would change everything for our sons. We sat on a fallen log while the boys played in the distance, and for the first time I let the truth breathe. Jasper listened, then took my hand, rough from years on job sites, steady as ever. "I've fallen for you," he said simply. "The way you love Liam, the way you laugh at my bad jokes, the way you show up even when it's hard. I want to see where this goes." The kiss that followed was soft, tentative, filled with 2 years of quiet longing and 5 years of grief. No fireworks, just the quiet click of 2 hearts finally aligning under a gray Seattle sky. We walked back down the trail holding hands when the boys weren't looking, and the world felt different, lighter, scarier, possible. But Monday brought reality. A parent at pickup mentioned seeing us at the park, looking cozy. And the gossip mill started turning. My sister called from California that night, voice tight. "People talk, Antonio. Liam's only 10. Are you sure this is the right time?" Jasper faced his own storm when an old coworker from the construction crew made a crude joke at the job site. He came over later, shoulders tense, and we sat on my couch talking it through until midnight. "I won't hide who I am anymore," he said. "But I won't rush the boys either." We agreed to take it slow, to let the friendship stay the public face while we figured out the rest in private. Yet every shared dinner, every text goodnight, every moment our eyes met across the soccer field pulled us closer. The internal war raged. Joy at finally feeling whole versus terror that one misstep could fracture the family we were quietly building. By the end of the month, the boys had started calling each other brothers without prompting. And Jasper and I had shared enough quiet nights on the deck to know this wasn't just a phase. It was the beginning of something that would either break us or make us stronger than we'd ever been alone. Thanksgiving arrived like a test we hadn't studied for. My parents flew up from California expecting the usual quiet holiday. But Jasper and Noah were already part of our rhythm. We hosted at my house. Turkey in the oven, Liam and Noah setting the table with mismatched plates, Jasper chopping vegetables with the ease of a man who'd cooked alone for years. When my mother pulled me aside in the kitchen and asked why that nice construction guy was spending every holiday with us, I froze. Jasper stepped in smoothly, offering her a glass of wine and steering the conversation to football, but the tension lingered. Later, after Pi and the boys had gone to bed, my father sat across from us and said quietly, "You two seem close. Just be careful with the boys." Jasper's hand found mine under the table, a silent anchor. The real storm hit 2 weeks later when Noah came home from school crying because a classmate said, "Two dads can't be real parents." Jasper held him that night, voice cracking as he explained love didn't need permission slips. I stayed late, helping tuck both boys in, then sat on Jasper's couch until dawn talking through the fear. "I almost pulled back last year," he admitted, "because I thought Noah deserved a normal life. But watching you with Liam showed me normal is whatever we make it." We decided then to stop hiding from each other. The next weekend we took the boys to the Space Needle, 4 of us walking the observation deck like any other family, and when Liam asked why Jasper always made me smile bigger, I told the truth in the simplest way I knew. "Because he makes me happy, buddy. Same way you do." The boys exchanged a look, then shrugged and asked for ice cream. Acceptance came easier than we'd feared. Yet the doubts didn't vanish overnight. Jasper's sister visited from Portland and pulled me aside, warning that blending families too fast could confuse the kids. I spent 3 sleepless nights replaying her words until Jasper showed up at my door with coffee and a quiet promise. "We don't have to have all the answers today. We just have to keep choosing each other." That choice became our mantra through parent-teacher conferences where curious glances followed us, through late-night talks about exes and grief and second chances. Christmas brought the first joint tree, for stockings hanging in a row, and when Jasper kissed me under the mistletoe after the boys were asleep, the world narrowed to the steady beat of his heart against mine. The internal crisis that had once kept me awake now felt like a chapter closing. I was no longer the man hiding pieces of himself. I was the man building a life with someone who saw every piece and loved them anyway. The boys started calling our combined households home base, and the word settled into my bones like it had always belonged there. Spring brought the misunderstanding that nearly broke us. I saw Jasper having coffee with an old friend from his past, one of the guys he'd dated briefly after losing his partner. The way they laughed together in the cafe window sent every insecurity roaring back. I drove home, heart pounding, convinced I was just a rebound, that the alpha single dad everyone admired had simply been lonely. When he texted later asking if everything was okay, I replied with a curt, "Busy." The silence stretched for 2 days. Liam noticed first. "Dad, you and Jasper fighting?" I lied and said no, but the knot in my stomach grew. Jasper showed up unannounced on the 3rd evening, rain dripping from his jacket, eyes tired but determined. "Talk to me, Antonio. Whatever it is, we fix it together." The confession spilled out. My fears, the cafe sighting, the voice in my head that still whispered I wasn't enough. He listened, then pulled me into a hug that smelled of rain and sawdust. "That was my college roommate, nothing more. The only man I want coffee with for the rest of my life is you." We sat on the porch steps until the rain stopped, talking through every doubt, every scar. He admitted his own fear that his past made him too broken for a real future. We promised no more running, no more assumptions. The next weekend we took the boys camping in the Cascades. For sleeping bags in one big tent, and under the stars Jasper whispered, "I choose this family every single day." The external pressures didn't disappear. A school board meeting about inclusive family policies turned heated when a few parents questioned alternative lifestyles. Jasper stood up in that packed auditorium, voice steady, and spoke about raising Noah with honesty and love. I sat beside him, hand on his knee under the table, and when it was my turn, I added my voice too. The room didn't erupt in applause, but enough heads nodded that we drove home feeling lighter. My own parents called after hearing from my sister, their questions gentler this time, and by the end of the call my mother asked when they could meet that nice man Jasper properly. Small victories stacked like bricks, building something solid. Yet the biggest sacrifice came when Jasper's company offered him a promotion that meant 6 months on a job site 2 hours away. He turned it down without hesitation. "My family is here," he said simply, looking at me and the boys playing in the yard. I argued, told him not to give up opportunities for me, but he shook his head. "This is the life I want. You, Liam, Noah, us." In that moment, every doubt I'd carried dissolved. We were no longer two single dads navigating separate storms. We were partners steering one ship through whatever weather came. The boys celebrated with a backyard campout, roasting marshmallows and asking when we could all live under one roof. Jasper and I exchanged a look across the fire and knew the answer was soon. The journey had been messy, painful, beautiful, and every step had led us exactly here. Summer arrived with moving boxes and the scent of fresh paint. We combined households in Jasper's bigger house, turning the guest room into a shared playroom for the boys and hanging family photos that told our story in pieces. Soccer games, holidays, quiet mornings on the deck. Liam and Noah helped paint their new bunk beds bright blue, arguing over who got the top bunk but grinning the whole time. Neighbors brought casseroles and cautious smiles. Some asked questions, others simply welcomed the laughter that now spilled from the yard every evening. One Saturday we hosted a backyard barbecue for the whole soccer team. Jasper flipped burgers while I tossed salad, the boys running through sprinklers with their friends. When a parent asked how long we'd been together, Jasper slipped an arm around my waist and answered without hesitation. "Long enough to know this is forever." The words landed soft and sure, and I leaned into him, no longer flinching at the public affection. Later, after the last guest left and the boys were tucked in with stories of their two dads, Jasper and I sat on the swing under the stars. "Thank you for saying yes to dinner that night," he murmured. I laughed softly. "Thank you for inviting me and refusing to let me hide." The kiss we shared then carried every late-night talk, every fear faced, every joy claimed. Life wasn't perfect. School projects still brought questions. Holidays required careful navigation with extended family, and the world outside our fence still had opinions. But the four of us had built something stronger than blood or convention. We had chosen each other every single day, and that choice had turned strangers into a family. Liam started calling Jasper Papa J without prompting, and Noah began introducing me as his other dad at practice. The internal storms that once kept me awake now felt like distant thunder, proof that growth hurts before it heals. On the last night of summer, with fireflies blinking in the yard and the boys asleep upstairs, Jasper pulled me close on the porch and said the words I'd waited my whole life to hear without fear. "Welcome home, Antonio. For good." I looked at the house full of our combined lives and knew he was right. The single dad who had invited me to dinner had given me more than a meal. He had given me back myself, and together we had built the family neither of us thought we'd find. True or false? A single dinner invitation from the right person can truly redefine family for two gay dads and prove love is stronger than every prejudice the world throws at them?